Kien fl-istampa mhux biss għax huwa Ingliż, mhux biss għax għandu salarju fenomenali, imma kif ukoll huwa l-persuna magħrufa bħala Chief Commercial Officer tal-Air Malta. Magħna fl-istudio intervista bl-Ingliż Philip Saunders fejn se nistaqsuh dwar ir-riformi, fejn waslu, qed ikun hemm frott u jekk ma jkunx hemm frott se jiġri. Magħna fl-istudio wara reklami Philip Saunders.
Logo graphic signs, vehicle wrapping, large format printing, professional sign making. Logo graphic signs, because experience matters.
Xemx u xita Alla jaf meta it-temp jinbidel f'ħakkatajn għalhekk trid taf f'idejn l-esperti. Tinet, twaped, gazebos, sufanijiet u amara għal barra, dwar u effetti speċjali u maftit mela ħafna affarijiet Casapinta Exhibitions and Events jistgħu joffrulek. Għalhekk jekk għandek xi attivitajiet fuq barra, eżibizzjonijiet jew xi tiġ ċemplilna issa ħal-stima.
Philip Saunders, thank you for coming to Reporter, Chief Commercial Officer Air Malta. Definitely a hot subject, a subject where obviously you have been asked and quizzed over the reform process since obviously the issue of Air Malta and its future. If you had to mention in a nutshell what people like you have done since taking over not only the reform program per se, but rather also trying to improve the commercial viability of Air Malta. How would you reply to that?
Well, first of all, bonjour, grazie Hafner for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I think that a lot has been undertaken in the last year. And if you take the commercial area, what we've really undertaken is a transformation of the way the airline sells its product, beginning at transforming the way we market the product as well. And the results can be seen. As you know, as part of the restructuring process, we've reduced capacity significantly, but at the same time, the results have really been improving. If you have a look just at the April results, so in the last month, we've seen an improvement in seat load factor. In fact, we achieved a seat load factor of 76%, which was some 3% higher than the previous year and only 2 points lower than Ryanair. At the same time as improving our yield by very nearly 10%. And the passenger numbers, although evidently lower than in the previous year because of the capacity reduction, were well ahead of our budget expectations and also much, much better than you would have anticipated with the reduction in capacity. So that's April, but it's also true that we've seen improvements throughout the rest of the previous year. And bearing in mind a key part of the restructuring plan is to deliver more revenues. We're on the right path. But I think it's important to recognise that that's only the beginning of the process. There's a great deal more to be done. So we're going to be working very hard over the coming months, first of all on our brand repositioning, which has been commented on and I'm very happy to talk about as well, about our transformation of our in-flight services and making sure that the change we have is sustainable. And I think
are you convinced that the model you have chosen for Air Malta will work, or do you have doubts over this? I mean, are there things which you depend on, circumstances which you depend on, which could basically scuttle all your plans?
Well, I think it's true to say that the aviation business is one of the toughest in the world, and there are always external challenges that can have an impact on you. But I think the good news is that Malta at the moment, first of all, is showing resilience in the economic storm that we face in Europe, and I think that Air Malta can continue to play a part of that by offering the right products and making sure that we have good offers in the market. But of course it's challenging. We see how many airlines have gone bankrupt in recent times. Malef in Hungary, Spanair in Spain, and airlines recently in Scandinavia. So it's tough without doubt, but I believe without doubt that the course that we're embarking on, the repositioning of the airline as a destination airline rather than a rather vaguely defined state carrier, national carrier, will help us to meet our objectives. And I wouldn't be here if I wasn't confident that the path we're taking can deliver success.
How about the local situation? First of all, were you aware when you would sort of land parachuting, you would be obviously the centre of so much media attention, and not only you, but also Peter Davis, the CEO. Did you expect such a welcome party for your
Well, I think when you enter a job like this, you should expect media scrutiny, or you shouldn't do the job, and you should be able to stand up for it and make sure that we communicate the messages of the great things that are happening at Air Malta. But I've worked on 2 restructurings in the past as well, SM Brussels Airlines and Caribbean Airlines, and there's no doubt that the scrutiny and the interest is much larger here. But I don't think we should be surprised. 25% to 30% of the economy is fundamentally linked to the activities of Air Malta, and I think we welcome the interest because I think it also reflects a pride in the national carrier, and our objective is to make sure that Air Malta is flying with pride every day.
How do you see this reform programme? Do you see this reform programme over a period of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? How do you see this reform programme? How long do you see it happening?
Well, we've set ourselves the objective of reaching a break-even position within 2 years. So this year we're aiming, that's this financial year, we're aiming to halve the losses effectively, and then in 2014 move to a break-even position. But as you know, all of the activity that we're undertaking is also dependent upon the European Union effectively giving its benediction, if you like, to the restructuring plan. So once that happens, they will continue to monitor what we're doing and how we perform. But I think that once we achieve those objectives, then we'll also be in a position to build on the strength of the platform that we're aiming to create here at Air Malta, and see the airline then also have the opportunity to grow somewhat as well. So I see it as a 2-year plan to get to a break-even position, but evidently this is a challenging industry, and we'll have to keep working hard to make sure that Air Malta is positioned in the right way.
There was this issue about you've answered me about the profitability question, that you're looking at increased revenues, you're seeing an improvement there. But with regards to the recruitment of staff, you introduced a early retirement scheme, and there was quite a response. But at the same time, then you had recruitment of staff which you had lost. Isn't this a question of maybe misjudging or lack of planning for the short and long term?
Not at all. I think that, first of all, if you look at the VRS and the ERS programme, we set ourselves objectives.
VRS and the ERS?
Sorry, voluntary severance and early retirement, absolutely right. One lives with it every day, one forgets to make it clearer. I think that if you look at the programme, it's worked very well. First of all, we've tried to accommodate people's requests and desire if they wish to take up one of those programmes. There's been some comment in the media, for example, recently about the cabin crew programme, where it's correct that we needed just over 20 people effectively to meet our targets, but more people applied. And as we discussed with the Union of Cabin Crew Committee at the time, we were willing to actually make that possible for people. But as we look forward, there are obviously certain roles that then become available in a very reorganised structure. For example, in commercial, we've created some new positions whilst getting rid of other positions. We have more of a focus, for example, on sales from Malta. And we need talent in order order to fill those positions. So we've actually looked first and foremost at finding talent across the airline. So we have people, for example, moving from ground handling into the sales environment, which I think is a positive development, which in the past didn't happen very often. At the same time, where necessary and where appropriate, we're looking for talent from outside the airline. So if I look at my commercial area, either through the fact that people have decided to leave or the fact that we are going to increase our efforts in those areas, we need people with professional background in web development and online development. And it's quite appropriate to recruit people from outside and make sure we have the right mix, the mix of experience, youth, and also enthusiasm and skills to make sure that Air Malta can succeed.
Do you see your post being taken up by Maltese who would then have to accept lower salaries than you have? Do you see this happening, or do you...
I think what we do is we make sure that we get the right people for the right positions and that we have attractive salary schemes in place.
But how can you have attractive salaries in an industry like this, where the rest of the average salary and even competitive business is far, far, far below what normal salaries you are getting? How can you have this in a... I mean, this is not exactly... I mean, we thought we were living in an equal opportunities kind of, scenario.
Well, I think we are living in an equal opportunity scenario. If you're referring to my position, I'd like to think that value is being added to the organisation. And if you have a look at the sales figures and if you have a look at marketing, where we've saved just €1 million by doing things differently and making sure we have a return on investment on our business, I think it's a good investment. Sorry, you asked a question relating to the broader scheme. What we're doing is we're making sure that first of all, we've put in place a process to make sure that all jobs are graded on an absolutely objective basis, and therefore we're now looking at salaries, we're looking at people's backgrounds, and I think that we are offering, as I've said, an environment where we have a far more sustainable basis for the future, but also a much fairer approach to remuneration than in the past.
When you talk about branding, are you conscious of the fact that you can't lose the image that Air Malta built up? I mean, locally, Air Malta didn't have a bad image per se. I mean, obviously, when you look at the accounts and the books and the political patronage over the years, and the bad tradition, Air Malta, within our own highly politicized climate, had a bad name per se. But on an international level, Air Malta didn't have a very bad name, or at least had a rather acceptable, view of things. I mean, how do you intend to change the brand? What do you intend to do? Very, very brief. My questions are very long.
You've asked two questions, and the first question is, first of all, we believe that Air Malta needs to go through a cultural transformation in order to achieve its objectives. That's not a reflection purely on the past, it's a reflection on the nature of the industry we have. But we know about the pride inside the organisation and outside for what Air Malta has achieved in the past. The fact is, we now need to look to the future, and every good brand should take the opportunity to reflect on its positioning, to reflect on what it offers and modernise it and make it more dynamic. I also recognise very much that 70%, at least, more probably, of our customers are coming to Malta on leisure-related business, and I want to make sure that the Air Malta brand plays its full role in attracting more visitors to come to Malta, that we actually offer a really dynamic product offering, and that's what we're going to do.
New routes, the last question before this, so it hasn't been a minefield, this interview, but new routes. The reaction to reacting to a new market, how long does it take you to decide in your organisation? I mean, I have the impression that you also suffer from some kind of small bureaucracy, small sort of, the thinking process tends to be longer than one would have imagined. But how do you react to new demands in the market?
I don't know about bureaucracy. Proper planning is essential in an airline which is an operation and which has high safety requirements. I think actually we've responded really fast where we have opportunity. So in Libya, for example, we were one of the first carriers into Tripoli, and in Benghazi we had to get the mix right between making sure that we had a safe environment on the ground and also that we had an opportunity to serve the market and that the market was actually there. So as you know, we've launched the Tripoli services. This week we launched Benghazi, and we're going to improve our services to both Tripoli and Benghazi later on in the year. We've brought St. Petersburg on as a scheduled route and doubled the capacity. So we are making route network changes. But we have to remember that as part of the restructuring plan as well, there is a reduction in capacity. It's part of the compensatory measures which are necessary as part of the EU restructuring plan. What we want to do is make sure that on the basis of the route network we have and where we have opportunity, that we improve performance. By making sure that we deliver to the commitments we're making, then we'll be able to also grow, I think, the route network more at that time. So I think it's actually a well-planned process, and it's gradual and incremental.
Philip Saunders, Chief Commercial Officer, Air Malta, I wish you well, and I wish, obviously, well, for the sake of Air Malta and, obviously, the auxiliary services and peripheral and multiplier effect that Air Malta leaves in Malta. Thank you for coming to report.
Grazie ħafna.